Hi, welcome to Board Game Express. Today we're going to set up and play La Granja. Now, it turns out La Granja is an actual place. So, off of the southern coast of Spain, there's the island of Mallorca, and in its capital, Palma, if you head north about 10 miles, there's a little village called Esporles, and this is now a museum located in that village. So, this is an actual picture if you want painting. If you want to check it out, you can Google it and take a look for yourself. Now, La Granja is a bit of a resource management farming style game. There's also going to be some dice drafting in it. And perhaps the most interesting thing about La Granja is going to be what's called the multifunctional cards. Each of these cards can have 4 completely different uses, and you get to decide for each one what you want to do with it. So that's going to be a very interesting take in a moment. All right, so let's go ahead and set up the game. Now, for starters, on your board, you're going to have these what are called craft bonus tiles. So set out, there are 6 varieties, a stack of 4 each. And then on each of these inner blue zones, you're going to put a victory point token, like this. And then finally, there are what are these blocking markers. You're going to want to randomly roll a die and then put the first 3 out on these spaces. So number 5, number 6, and if you roll a duplicate, just roll again. And number 3. So these zones are initially out of the game, and put a victory point token with each one. And finally, these what are called roof tiles, you'll want to set them out, 1 for each round of the game. So you can see the game is going to go 6 rounds. And there are 4, it's a maximum 4-player game, and so I've set up a 3-player game right here, and I did not put out the board for the green, just for space sakes. But if you have fewer than 4 players, then go ahead and remove a tile for each player missing, so just randomly take 1 out of the game. And then reveal the other 3. All right, and now your board is set up. So the players have everyone choose their color, and everyone is going to take 25 markers, these little cylinder-looking things. And these basically they are not anything in and of themselves. They represent goods depending on where you place them. So for example, if they exist here, this is what's called a trade good. If they are here, this is a pig. And if they are here, this is a processed pig. And that's pretty much what they're for. Now, you're going to have your color there. You're going to have 4, everyone's going to have the same 4 what are called donkey tiles. You're going to bid with these during the game. And then randomly choose starting player order with these tiles. So let's just say blue is going first, and we'll say Ms. Green is going second, and then we'll have red going third. And then once you have player order determined, go ahead and set out these siesta markers. This is how turn order is determined each turn, and put it on the very bottom space. Have the first player on top and then going on down. And then finally, in turn order, each player will place 1 of their barrels into this market center over here. So starting with first player, blue, that player will go on the 2 space in the very middle. Then we'll have green go in the 3. And then finally, red will go in the 4. And if you have a 4th player, that player will go in the 5 right there. I will also point out at this time that I know it's not something that can be seen on the camera, but at the very outer layer, there's a little X on the market spaces. So in a 3-player game, those would not be in the game. So just be aware of that. All right. Now that everyone has their pieces set up, finally give everyone 1 money, 1 victory point, and each player will start the game with 1 trade good. So mark it with a marker right here. And during the game, at any point, you can pay your trade good to trigger any of the visual effects here. So for example, you can take 4 money, you can take a pig, 2 what are called harvest goods, whatever you want, whenever you want on your turn, and for any number of trade goods that you might have. All right. The final thing that you're going to do is every player is going to take 4 cards into their opening hand. So give everybody 4 of these. And let's talk about the cards, because these things are really, really cool. All right, so here's an example of one. Each card has 4 different features on it. Basically, that means you can use it in one of 4 ways, completely up to you, and it will do something different in each instance. So for example, this card over here, you can use the left side, right, top, or bottom. So if you wanted to use the left side, I'm actually just going to use a generic one for a demonstration. What you would do to play the card is you would tuck it under your board along the left side. And there are 3 little zones right here. There's a green, yellow, and purple. This is for olives, wheat, and grapes. So this card, for example, you can see a little purple here. That's a grape. If you play a card off to the left side, then what this represents is a field that you have, tended. And now, for every future turn, it can harvest and produce one of that good. So this right here would be a grape. The one I've placed down on the bottom here would be a wheat. So that is if you play a card on the left. You can also play a card to use the effects on the right. This is what's known as a farm extension. So what you will see on this card, hopefully you can make that out, it will increase your hand limit by 1. That's the icon over here. Your main board gives you a hand limit of 3. You will also have 2 of 3 possible effects on the right side. The 2 visible here is 1, money income, so the game blue text is income. And the bottom here is, for those of you familiar with farming games, this is space for 1 additional pig. And this game will have breeding, which is why you want them. Now, another example is over here, and this one has a slightly different icon. So the one on top is money for a donkey. I'll explain what those are in a moment. And on the right side, it can have any 2 of the 3, and on the left side, it will have 1 type of field. And so because there's only 3 different varieties, they're pretty common. So whatever you want, you're probably going to get it sooner or later. All right. Now, where the cards start to differ a little is in the tops and bottoms. So on top is what's called a market barrow. It's essentially an order card if you were to play it that way. If you play a card on the top, then you're going to tuck it in like this. Fits nice and neat. Everything else will be covered and not visible. And the top will show what the order wants. And as you deliver them and complete it, that is what's going to score, and that's going to be one of the goals of the game. Now you'll notice you have 3 spaces on top. If you wanted to, you are allowed. If it's full, you can play another card on top, but you will have to discard one. Not very efficient. You probably shouldn't do that at all. And finally, the card bottom is what's known as a helper. And although I say bottom, it's essentially the center and the bottom. So you would play it like this, tucking it underneath, where only the text is visible. These are what's known as helpers, and they each basically do what the text says. And some of them can get a little fancy, so make sure to check out the appendix coming in the game just to figure out exactly what it does. Now, same thing. You have room for 3 helpers. You can play more. You simply have to throw away one of the previous helpers. Now, helpers come in 2 flavors. Some of them have a little 1X in the corner, like this one does. I know it's this one does not. Maybe you can see it over here. Some of the cards come with a little 1X on the bottom right corner. That means that's an ability that can be used once per round, so once for each of the 6 rounds. If it doesn't, if it looks more like this, then most likely the card is a passive effect that's sort of just always on as long as you have the card. Now, I'm just going to kind of mention the cards are way more interesting for their bottom text, the helper text, of course. Just try not to get enamored with it because the game is actually very balanced. All 4 sides are legitimately equally useful, so don't go thinking like something's better than the other automatically, although it is true some of the helpers are really, really nice. All right, now one last thing to mention about playing cards. If you play a card on the right side of your board, so as a farm extension, like if you were to tuck it this way, lines up over here, blue on blue, then there is a cost to be paid. There's a chart in the top right of your player aid which basically tells you what to do when you play a farm extension to the right. The first time you play a card, you have to pay one of the visible 9 resources. So basically one of the farm goods, a pig, or a victory point, or a coin, those count as well. You have to give up one. If you want to play a second card tucked, then the payment increases to 2. And not only do you have to give up 2 things, they have to be different. And if you play a third card, you have to pay 3 different, fourth card, 4 different, so on and so forth. Obviously, that gets very, very difficult to pay for as you keep stacking cards to the right, so it's unusual to have that many. All right, so now we talked about what the cards are. Let's talk about how to play the game. And this game has one of the most functionally useful player aids that you will see. If you ever want to say, well, how do I play this game? The answer is look at the next picture and just follow the numbers, right? So the game is going to have 6 rounds, and each round you're just going to follow these 4 phases and the steps within the phase one at a time. So let's look at them. Now the first one is play a card and draw back up to hand size. So players on turn 1, take a look, play something, choose which side to put it on. If it's on the right, remember you got to pay, and then put the card down. Now only for turn 1, everyone will play 2 cards. So play 2 of your cards, and then when everyone's done, you will draw back up to hand size. Now your normal hand size is 3, it's printed here, and if you tucked any cards onto the right, each one will increase your hand size by 1. So if you happen to play a farm extension, you'll draw back up to 4 right away. All right, so once that is done, then number 2 is what's called scoring income. Income is these little blue things on the right side of your board. Now in the beginning of the game, you probably will not have any income. You might, if you manage to play a farm extension that has this blue symbol, that has this blue symbol right here, so that would mean you start off with some income, but generally income comes much later. Now, the third thing you're going to do is you're going to produce farm goods. So every card that you happen to play on the left side has a field in it, and you will produce. And what you do is to simply put something on your field. There you go. Now you have an olive. Well, I guess a large quantity of olives. Also, at this point, pigs will possibly produce. So to have that happen, you have to first have 2 pigs already. This will be a familiar mechanic to those of you who play a lot of these games. And you have to have a farm extension that has a pig capacity and an empty slot. So if you have those and then you have that empty slot, get a baby pig. So that is step 3. After you produce your harvest goods and your pig, then the final thing will be everyone may buy a roof tile, and this will happen in turn order, except for turn 1. On turn 1, you will buy roofs in reverse turn order. So there are a pair of things to remember for the first turn of the game. 1, you play 2 cards instead of 1, and 2, you'll buy your roofs in reverse order. So the cost of a roof is printed on the number equal to the game round. So in round 1, each roof costs 1 silver. So pay your silver, choose a roof, and then, so let's say blue chooses 1. You're going to put it on the leftmost of these roof spaces that are available. And what a roof is a power that you can use, usually a resource that you can take, at any time you want. So similarly to this trade commodity down here that you can exchange whenever you want and take one of the printed bonuses, a roof tile that you've purchased is something that you can say, well, I want it now, whatever it is. It could be a resource, it could be a donkey. Flip it, use it, usable once. Now, you will see that there are victory points printed on these spaces here. That basically means if you buy a second, third, fourth, etc. roof, you will score those victory points immediately. So as soon as you cover that, get those points. Another thing you may notice, there are only 5 empty spaces. You are only ever allowed to buy 5 roofs during the 6 rounds, so that means everybody is going to be forced to skip one sooner or later. And generally, The roofs get a little weaker as time goes on, so the earlier you can buy the roofs, the cheaper they are, and slightly more powerful the effect that they give you. So just keep that in mind. All right, so everybody who wants to buys a roof, and the ones that are not purchased, go ahead and just discard them. All right, so that ends phase one. That will be the farm phase. Now we move on to phase two, what's known as the revenue phase. And for this part, you will roll the dice. So picture the dice. The game will use 2 dice per player, so 3 players will be 6, plus 1 extra. So in this case, 7 dice. So somebody take them, roll them, and put them out on this board right here. 2, 4, 5, 4, 6, and another 5. Okay. And now, in turn order, players will do a little bit of dice drafting. So blue gets to pick 1 die that he wants, and then gets whatever effect that he chooses. So for example, spot 1, very simple, pay a pig. Spot 2, a little fancier. You can take a harvest resource, or this symbol is you may either play or draw a card. Now, the game will allow you to draw as many cards as necessary during step 1-1. So actually, you pretty much never want to use it to draw a card. You always want to use it to play a card. So because like each card you play will eventually, pretty immediately, become a card draw. Step 3 is you will get 2 resources of the farm goods, 2 different ones. Take 4 money. This spot number 5 is either get 2 points up the siesta track. This is how you fight for turn order. 2 donkeys. Again, I'll tell you what those are for in a minute. Or 1 of each. And finally, the last spot, sorry, not 2 donkeys, got ahead of myself. 2 siesta track or 2 stars, which are what are known as upgrades. I'll show you what those are in a moment. And the final space, space 6, is where you can either take 2 money or the donkey. So, each player will choose a die, so just going to use an example. Maybe he takes that one, he takes that one, right? He takes this one. Then you choose a second time around. So blue, green, and then maybe red takes this. Now, when everyone's taken 2 dice, you're done. There will be 1 left over. This leftover die will be used by all players simultaneously. So whichever one you did not want, everybody now gets to do this, and they can each choose whatever it is in there that they want to do. All right, and once everyone has executed that action, phase 2 is over, and it's time to move on to the third phase, what I like to call the delivery phase. All right, now we get to talk about the donkeys. In simultaneous action, you start the game with these 4 what are called donkey tiles. Each player is going to secretly choose one, and I just randomly pick one. And then they're all going to reveal them simultaneously. All right, and then you can set it out here. So now, after you've done that, step 2 is that you will calculate turn order at this point, and that is based on this siesta track. So for whichever token each person picked, oh wow, okay. So blue, for example, took the 3 hat or 3 siesta track, meaning you will move up 1, 2, 3 spots. All right, and let me just take a random one for green. Green's gonna take 2. And finally, what did I choose for red? Oh my gosh, red chose a 3. 1, 2, 3. That's actually usually not gonna happen, but all right. So now, and note that it is possible players may have already moved up on this track from taking the 5 value die earlier. So now you will immediately recalibrate turn order. And it's kind of interesting that this happens in the very middle of each game round. Not a lot of games do that. So if you land on top, you now go first. So red will be the new first player, blue will be second, green will be third. So you would immediately switch these around. I guess I'll do it just because. And then for the rest of this round, the round will happen in this turn order. So after you do that, step 3 is use your donkeys. Okay, so what are these things, right? So blue has 1 donkey, for example. A donkey is what's known as a delivery action. So a delivery action is you may take 1 good of the essentially the 9 kinds in the game. I think 8 of them are going to be deliverable. And then to deliver it somewhere either onto the board or onto your order card right here. So let's talk about goods for a moment. Goods are going to be things that you mark off with your marker, but they can exist in a lot of different places. So for example, the most common way you'll have goods is when you plant a field off to the side. It will have produced one during the farm phase. So this means you have a grape. Now, you also have what are called these dens. So when you take goods from dice, for example, or from roof tiles or any other effect, those goods will go into your den. So this grape is in my field, but if I had taken this die earlier and taken a grape, that grape would actually go in my den right here. So there are a couple things that are important to understand. They're both grapes, but, and I'll try my best to give you a close-up here. Actually, let me use the pigs. I'll illustrate this with the pigs. So for example, there's 2 spots for pigs, and that means you have a pig. Now, there are going to be a couple numbers pointing at each of these resources. So the pig has a 5 and a 3. What those numbers represent is at any time, any player can buy or sell those resources at those printed prices. Now, of course, you are paying the higher number. So if you wanted a pig instantly, you'd have to pay 5 coins, and you sell at the lower number. So if you needed money desperately, you can sell your pig to the market and immediately take 3 money. There is also another number which is called an upgrade. So for $4, you can process your pig and turn it into meat. Now, all 3 of these actions are instant and can be done at any time on your turn, in any order, in any way. You can buy something, you can sell something, or you can upgrade something. Now, of course, once you've upgraded, you cannot go backwards. You would not want to anyway. And another thing that's kind of important, once you've upgraded a good, there will not be a price printed, meaning you cannot sell that good. So make sure before you upgrade it, you actually want to do that. And that's what this star symbol on the 5 die is. The star means a free upgrade of some good. Now, the pigs are going to go from here to here, but the, well, I guess I'll kind of show it here. Hopefully the side view is going to be effective. If you have a grape, you can upgrade it into wine. You can also do this with one that is in your field. If you happen to have a grape in your field, you can also pay $3 to turn it into wine. Similarly, you can turn olives and wheat into food. All of those actions, buying, selling, those are instant and, action free. Now, something that's very important, the fields work slightly different. Whereas if you have a pig, you simply have the pig. You can buy or sell it as you please. But if your product is in the field, you cannot sell it as you wish. The ones in your den you may sell, but the ones in your field you must use. So you actually have to deliver it, or there are some cards that let you pay them to do an effect, but you cannot, for example, whereas I could sell this this grape for 2 money right now, I cannot do that with this one. I'm stuck with that one. All right, so that's the difference between them. All right, now, donkeys. Each donkey is a delivery. So if red were to have 1 donkey, that means I can deliver 1 object that I have, so for example, this grape, into a place that needed a grape. Now that can be one of 2 things. Sometimes that is a card. So this market order wants a grape. Let's use blue. So if I had a donkey, I can say I'm going to deliver this to there. And now I'm 1 step closer to finishing that order. The other thing you can do is you can submit it to one of the 3 open, what are called craft buildings on the board. Now, grapes exist here, but it is temporarily blocked. These X's that you put out at the beginning of the game dictate which 3 are available at the start of the game and which are not. And it turns out the other place you can use a grape is also blocked. So, okay, we're kind of blocked. But there are several other places where you can deliver other things. So this one, for example, this craft building wants 6 coins. So you would literally say, well, I have a coin. I'm going to use this donkey. I'm going to deliver this coin, so pay it back to the bank, and then put one in the craft building to represent. So that's what a donkey is. A donkey is a delivery action. Take one of your goods and then deliver it to either an order or somewhere on the board. All right, now let's talk about these deliveries, because this is the primary way that you will be scoring points. You're farming so that you can give things to the people. All right. Now, craft buildings. The way these work is that there are 4 rows in each one, and they are 1 for each player. You will not block each other. You are racing each other, but you can't block each other. So blue's going to have his own. Red, green, they each have their own. Now, each one of these is going to indicate an object that it wants delivered. So, for example, this one wants 6 money. This one, which is currently blocked, wants 3 pigs, etc., etc. Now, as you deliver, you're going to load up with your barrels. So that would mean I have already delivered 3. Eventually, you will finish it off. So, at the moment you finish one of these craft rows, then you will immediately do 2 things. You will score victory points equal to the current turn. So if I finish this on turn 1, which that would be very hard. I'm not even sure that's possible. I would score 1 victory point because it's turn 1, and you will take this bonus tile and put it in the appropriate space on your board. This one in particular is 3 money. So each of these bonus tiles has 2 sides. The first front side has a lightning bolt on it, which means you immediately get something or do something. So in this case, take 3 money right away. And then at the end of the entire round, you will flip it over and set it on your board where it will become a passive permanent ability. Now, in this case, this one's a little dull because once it's permanent, it just means 3 income. You will put it right here. And that means in the future, during the income phase, you're going to collect 3 additional money on top of whatever else you've managed to collect over the game. So, you finish a craft building, get points equal to the round, take an instant reward, and at the end of the round, put it on your board, and now it becomes a permanent. Now, once you finish this, you will take all your markers back, and you will leave 1 on here. So each of these craft buildings has this little blue zone that's associated with it. If you happen to be the first person who completed a row, you get this victory point as a reward. And now the other 3 players can do it, but you got there first, you keep this victory point. Something else that happens, but only in the beginning of the game. The first person to complete one of these buildings, so if blue just did it, will unlock number 1. So there's a tiny number on each one in the corner. Oh, that one's number 3. That one's number 1. So you will find the number 1 blocker, and now that is available, and you will also earn this victory point as a reward. So basically, each of these 6 is going to reward 1 point to the first person who does it, but the first 3 different buildings that are finished going to give another point as a reward for being the first to finish one of the 3 sections. So this is out of the game. They get another victory point. Blue is very happy, right? And now this space becomes available for everyone to use. So that is how delivering to craft buildings works. Does not score as many points per se, but the power that it gives you is very important, and you definitely want to do a lot of these during the game. All right. The second delivery option is a market order that you have set down, or what's called a market barrow. So, for example, this one wants a grape and 2 wheat. So, pretending that blue was able to get 2 wheat somehow. So one way he could have done this and gotten a wheat that way. Maybe he took a resource die and got a wheat that way, and he's had some wheat sitting in his den. So eventually, you'll have to have 3 donkeys. And then when you're finished, you have delivered this product. Think of it as fulfilled the contract. So you're going to get 2 things for this. First, you're going to get a trade good. So now you have another one of these. Then, according to the number on the card, and this one is a 3, you are going to score that many points immediately, and you will put one of your markers into the central market on a space equal to that number. So, you can choose a 3 here or a 3 here, etc., etc. Now, this part of the game is a little bit of a war game. You are going to kick each other off. At the moment you place your barrel down, you look at its immediate... Oh, actually, sorry, that's not legal because I forgot. This is a 3-player game. So there we go. Go right there. At the moment you put it down, you're going to score points equal to the number, so 3 points. And you're going to look at the immediate neighbors, and for each opponent that is sitting on a lower number than you, you are going to kick them out, and you're going to get a point additional for kicking out that barrel. Right now, the blue is the one that's on the 2, and this is on a higher number that's on a 4, so nothing would happen here. You do not kick yourself out. But if, instead of blue having completed this contract, if, say, red had completed it and placed, get 3 points for placing, and then kick blue out, and score 1 more point for having successfully kicked blue out. So that's what happens there. Alright, so those are the 2 things you can do with all of your donkeys, your deliveries. You can send a product to the craft building, or you can send a product to your market order. That is the bulk of sort of what you're trying to do with this game. And now we get to go back to our player aid. So that was step 3. All players in turn order use the donkeys that are printed on their chosen donkey tile. Next 4, and please understand that these are 2 different steps. That is very important. This is when you can pay for additional or extra donkey deliveries, and that is indicated on the right side of your board and with any market extensions you might have played. You start the game, everyone starts the game with 1 purchasable donkey delivery. In other words, if I don't put anything here, I can pay 1 money to get another donkey delivery. And remember, if you happen to be out of money, you can sell a product instantly to a market. You can turn in a trade good to get 4 money, anything like that. So you can pay for donkeys. If you have played farm extensions to the right that have additional ones, then you can purchase more. So let's say I had gone really gung-ho and played 2 more cards out to the side that have this power. That means I can pay 1, 2, or 3 immediately to get 1, 2, or 3 deliveries. Now, small point of detail, you do have to pay up front, so you're not allowed to do something fancy like pay for 1 delivery, trigger an effect that gives you an income, and then pay for the second. You have to pay them all up front. Alright, so that's the 4th and final step of this phase. Everyone pays for donkey deliveries, and then that phase is over. Final phase 4 is basically a victory point counting part of your phase. It's just scoring. So you're going to score 2 things. First, you're going to score every single barrel that survived the round in the central market. So blue 2, red, green 1. Please note that that only includes the central market stall and not these craft building completion indicators over here. In fact, I tend to like to put them sort of on the outer edge just so people don't accidentally think that they're part of the count. So count these, not those. Second, you're going to score according to where you finished on the siesta track. So green is in the 1 victory point zone. Red and blue made it to the 2 victory point zone, so they'll take their points. And then you reset this going from top to bottom. So just kind of like imagine the claw machine. You go, ching, put it on top of green, and reset everyone onto the bottom space, and they'll be ready for next turn. And then clear out any roof tiles that were not wanted. Put out the roof tiles for the next turn. Remember, only 1 per player, so 3 players. You'll randomly throw 1 out of the game. And then you are set for next turn, and you will just repeat the process from beginning to end. Alright, now at the end of the game, once you're done with everything, then the only thing left to do is to cash out. The player aid, the backside, is sort of a handy reference guide for all the things that score points in the game. So you will score points every time you buy a roof. You will score points every time you send out a market barrow every time you finish a craft building, as well as end of the round. At the end of the game, this little indicator tells you to sell everything on your farm. Get rid of everything. Turn in your trade goods for 4 money, sell everything that you're legally allowed to sell at the market, and then $5 is 1 victory point at the end. And that will be the last thing you do. You count up all your points, and whoever has the most is the winner. Leftover money will be the tie break. All right, so a lot of stuff. Remember, this is a game about setting up an early farm and producing as much as you can and delivering out to the farm. Good luck out there. Now you know how to play La Granja.